Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video by the Comic Book Brit. I am Michael Miller, I am the Comic Book Brit, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some of my favourite works of art within comic. And I mean that quite literally. Art. The drawings, the colouring of comic books. And I'm going to start by talking to you a little bit about Daredevil Born Again, written by Frank Miller and drawn by Frank Mazzucchelli. A wonderful little piece. Now, of course, I'm going to have to preface this. This is not the greatest artists or the greatest examples of artwork in the history of comic books. This is just simply my opinion. This is the best out of my collection, I feel. And so we're starting with Daredevil Born Again. And the reason that I think that this is such a wonderful piece is because of the time that it was done in. It was done in the 1970s, where everything is largely this three-color, bright blues, bright yellows, bright reds, and things like that. But the subject matter is very gritty, it's very violent, and I think that just creates this wonderful juxtaposition as to the content and the classic color scheme that is done. I think it's a wonderful read. You should pick it up. We have Daredevil Born Again, Miller and Mazzucchelli, a wonderful teaming. They worked on Batman Year One as well. But the reason that I didn't pick that is because it was done later, and that was in a kind of a typical Batman style. You have the dark colors, the dark landscapes, and all that. It's still very gritty, but this is grittiness up against such a classic color scheme that I felt that it was just a wonderful thing to go on. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Mouse, which I spoke briefly about in a podcast as an example of comic books that were still amazing regardless of not having a superhero within them. So this tale of Art Spiegelman, who both wrote and drew the comic, this tale of his father, who was a Holocaust survivor, is absolutely wonderful. And I think the artwork is one of the most important elements of this, one of the most important elements of any comic book. But the reason that this artwork is so important is because of the immediate characterization that it produces. I mean, you can see from the cover here that we have two mice who are the Jewish main characters of it, and then we have a cat dressed as Hitler. The cats are Nazis, the Jews are mice, and the Americans are dogs, and it's a really amazing, humanizing artwork that just totally sets everything into the correct tone. It's absolutely wonderful. If you'd like to hear more about Mouse, then you can listen to that podcast, which is Comic Books Beyond the Superhero. Then I'm going to speak to you a little bit about Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, probably most famous for their work on Batman: The Long Halloween. But I have here a copy of Batman Dark Victory, which was the sequel to that groundbreaking comic book. And it's just a wonderful example of the writing and the artist, or the writer and the artist, just being on 100% the same page in terms of how everything is going to look. And it reads like this wonderful gangster story, and it's just drawn in a way that I think perfectly captures Batman. It's dark, it's gritty, it's very sharp, and it's just wonderful. I would highly advise that you look up this tremendous pairing. Jeff Loeb, separate from Tim Sale, I'm not a huge fan of his work outside of Batman, but when you put him with Tim Sale, it's just a tremendous combination. I love it. You can check out Dark Victory or The Long Halloween or Haunted Night, which is a selection of short stories with the same Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale style. Then I'm going to go straight into V for Vendetta, which is by Alan Moore. It is my favorite Alan Moore comic, even more so than Watchmen. And the reason that I decided to include this comic, I just had to include an Alan Moore one, but the reason that I decided to do this is just because of the coloring is very different. They didn't use any thought bubbles or anything like that, which is kind of crazy for a comic book. but it also demonstrates to me just how the writer can dictate the artwork, and how his story can, it can be given to an artist, and then he'll just decide, okay, well, this is how I think this should come across. And it almost looks in a lot of the panels, they come across in the same way that a film director would go about it, with tremendous cinematography. You should hopefully see a little bit about that. There will be upcoming podcasts on Alan Moore and his effect on the comic book industry very soon. Oh, it's my phone away there, God. But now we have the final piece, which is Batman Arkham Asylum it was written by Grant Morrison from Glasgow and drawn by a British artist, Dave McCain, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. Dave McCain is probably the greatest artist in the history of comics, because he goes so much further beyond just the pen and paper idea of art. There's a lot of photography involved. There are elements in his other work, such as Black Orchid, where he would literally go out, Black Orchid is a very nature-based, it's kind of a Mother Nature superhero type affair, and he would, go into his garden and take photos of the foliage and stuff like that, and just implement that in. There's a lot of works of almost chalk drawings and things like that, and he uses everything at his disposal as an artist to bring this really tremendous story to life. It is a joy to watch. It is just mind-blowing that this is what a true, fantastic, open-minded artist can bring to the medium. And one of the great things about artwork within comics, and one of the great things about the comic book in general in terms of art, is that, a lot of these single editions are so cheap that for about £3 you can go down, buy a comic book from a comic book shop, and you have yourself a work of art. Quite literally, in terms of the artwork of it. The amount of time that has gone into drawing even just a 10-page issue of a comic is wonderful, and the writing as well, the story arc, for such a cheap medium, you're getting so much out of it, and that is why the comic book is such a wonderful thing in terms of art, in terms of the context of art. So I hope you've ultimately enjoyed this video. There should be some more podcasts and some more news, more blogs coming out soon. But for now, you can like us on Facebook at the Comic Book Brit. There should be a link on the homepage as well for a Facebook like button on the side, and keep up to date with all of our content on there. Don't forget to check out the videos, podcast, news, and movie reviews, and blogs, and all sorts that we've got here on the Comic Book Brit. So for now, thank you very much for watching.